Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly discussion series that's hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with U of M Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. I'm your host, Wiam Neymoun, and my guest today is Emily Porter. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
So, Emily studied in Iraq, Beirut, Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, Russian Federation, the United States, and Austria. She is an activist in human rights and in preserving antiquities and cultural heritage. A dedicated researcher on religion and art, Emily is the editor of Memoirs of Maria Theresa Asmar, which has also been translated into Arabic. So, Emily, I met you exactly 10 years ago
Absolutely. Yes, it
in
was lovely that
2012.
time.
It
Yes.
was lovely because I was introduced, well, to you, but also
Yes.
to the memoir series, Memoirs of a Babylonian Princess, which,
Yeah.
as you had said at your lecture at the at
Yeah.
Shenandoah at the Chaldean
Yeah.
Cultural Center,
Yeah.
uh, interestingly, that you're back here 10 years later talking about this.
I
And
wish I'll be in person, not through Zoom, but that's the only thing we
one
can
of
do.
these days, yeah, maybe, who knows, if we're lucky
Yes.
enough to
Yeah.
have you again here.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing lecture that introduced me to Maria Theresa Asmar, along with her memoir series, and I ended up purchasing the book.
Which
Right,
one? Because there
I
is
got I got Memoirs of a Babylonian.
no. Yeah. Yeah. This is published, I think, in America.
Yes, I think it's by a U.S. publisher.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so we will talk a little bit about that and then tell people the lecture series that's coming up, which is sort of like a
Yeah.
combined
Okay.
lecture series and book club.
Yeah.
So, you know what, before we start, just tell us a little bit about your history and then how you came across this particular book.
Well, my history is very long, so I'm not going to start with my history. Just to be very brief, I come from a mixed marriage. My father is a English British from the Lake District in here in UK, and my mom, she is half Syrian Lebanese, half Iraqi. Her mom from Basra, her father from Halab and from Beirut. I was born in Baghdad, and then I lived uh, when I was just little, my dad had a job in Kirkuk, which is north east of Iraq, and very famous city, still is very controversial as well. So I was there until I was 6, 7 years old, and then we moved back to Baghdad. And after that, I carried on with my studies, and then I was, I had a scholarship to go and study abroad, and I didn't miss it. So we used traveling to Lebanon, to Syria to see the other part of the family, or staying in Iraq, traveling to Basra, where my grandmother originally from. So that's a bit of about my history. It's so I studied art, and then I carried on until I started to be a professional and working, finding jobs and everything. I was very lucky anyway in my life. I feel I combined two culture together. So culture never fight, only military fights. So culture, they integrate into each other, and they enhance each other and make it richer actually. And so I enjoy that. I enjoy my different culture. Really enjoy it. It's really give me more power, more self-confidence. So that's a bit about me. I'm retired now. I lectured in many places, many countries, so I won't go through it. Lectured on art and history of art. I worked Iraqi Museum for 15 years. And the things I could mention, which is really I like to, part of my book, Southern Wealthman, it's a novel, was translated by Newcastle University. It's about the massacre in 1915 by the Turkish, Iranian, and Kurdish during the First World War. I'm very happy with it. Another book, it's a novel called Dabul. It's been considered as the history of Baghdad as well, and being taught in many European different universities. So
Wow.
that's the two things
Yeah.
I
So
would like.
you have a large um, work of publications
I
of
do. I have low.
you
Yeah,
have a
I
pretty
have. Yes, yes, I
yes.
do. I do.
Um,
Yes, I do.
but including I'm sorry, the title of your book is Memoirs of Maria Theresa Asmar.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
yes, the editing. So tell us how you came across, because this is an interesting
I
story.
was so lucky to come across it. I've never heard of her. I have no clue who she was. Never mentioned anyway. In Iraq, nobody knows her. Nobody mentioned her. Nobody talk about her. She's completely neglected. And so I was in Geneva visiting a friend with my son in September. So I was visiting one of my friend who is a writer, and he had a magazine called Mesopotamia. I used to publish articles in it. So the minute I entered his house, I saw loads of books, which is that my passion. Books are my passion. So I immediately went to see the books. While I'm looking at those books in many different languages, I saw a little, like a booklet, not very attractive, very tiny. The cover is white. It says شخصيات مهمة من تل كيف. Important personalities from Tel Keif. I was stunned. What's this? Tel Keif, it's a very neglected little village in Iraq. Nobody bother about it. Nobody care about Tel Keif. And the people of Tel Keif, they come to Baghdad and have loads of friends of them. I love them. They are really nice. They are Chaldees. They speak their own language. In a way, I thought, okay, let's look at this book, see what it is. So I just pulled it up and opened it. It was written by a priest. I can't remember his name. So I start flicking into the pages. It says it mentioned personality from Tilkef, only clergymen. Majority of it is about clergymen and their contribution to Tilkef. And there was one name of a woman. So that would make me wonder, a woman, and her name, Marie-Therese Asmar. I know the Asmar family in Baghdad. They are well-known family, but never everybody mentioned anything about her. And in this booklet, it says Marie-Therese Asmar in 18 something, didn't mention exact date. She was born 1804, that's the only date. And she went to Europe, and she written two books for 750 pages. And in this book, she exaggerated about the size of her dad's house, which is, she says, is larger than the Louvre. That made me think, actually, I was so annoyed. So he mentioned 750 pages. Nothing attracted the priest, only she exaggerated about the size of Haddad's house in Tilcave. Well, that's why I said, sorry to my friend, I need to have a computer. I need to go to the British Library online. I am a member there. So if I go there, I'll see if she's written book in English, it should be in the British Library. So I went to the computer very quickly. All the knobs I know, click here, tick here, and write here, and write the name, write whatever. And there it comes on the screen. Marie-Therese Asmar books, 2 volumes. It's a British library. You can read it online, or you can come and read it in the library. Not allowed to leave the British Library. I said, when are we going back home? And my friend said, you've just arrived. I said, I can't wait to see this 2 volumes, 750 pages, and I'll see what's in it. So from there, my journey with Mary Asmar started. That's how it started.
My journey with her started that at that point when you told me about her as well, because I attended your lecture because I was writing an article for the Chaldean News.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I
in
remember that.
some instances, there's been very few times where the story that I cover becomes an
Yeah,
important part of my life,
yeah,
and this was one of them for many,
yeah,
many reasons, because her life, aside from her writing, because I was a writer, I still am, but
yeah,
it seemed like it was something that was so foreign in our community. Like you said, in Turkey, there's
yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah,
there isn't the focus on particular figures, especially not women, that I had
yeah,
never heard of it. Both of my parents were born in Turkey, and my father was a very educated man, but I had
yeah,
never heard of her. And as a writer, I felt so isolated and alone. And as someone who loved to travel the world, that also made me feel very isolated and alone, because I was having desires and wants, on a level that I felt like nobody can connect with.
yeah,
And then I
yeah,
find a woman that was long before me had the same interest. And I thought, oh my gosh, had I just
yeah,
known about her, I would have thought like this is not a big deal to have these kind of, ambitions, and to follow
yeah,
your skills and your
yeah,
talents in that way. And there was so many interesting factors about her
mhm.
traveling alone. I mean, first of all, let's talk a little bit about who is Maria Theresa Asmar. And I want to tell everybody that we are having a lecture series that's kind of combined as a book club that will start online on September
Mhm.
10th. It's
Yeah,
going to be every other Saturday at
yeah,
10 a.m. for about an hour and a half. So
hmm,
the dates are September 10th and the 24th, October 8th and the 22nd, November 12th and the 26th. And Emily is going to be leading this book club, this lecture series. And in it, we're going to learn a great amount of information about that
yes.
region and about Maria Theresa Asmar. But tell us briefly who she was, and then we'll go over some of the highlights of what we're going to be covering in the lecture series.
Yeah, she comes from a family from Tilkef. She was born 1804 to a quite affluent family, quite rich family. And because how you consider rich people at that time during the Ottoman Empire, because they had loads of activities, social and industrial and economical activities, like you could see. They had something to do with sheep selling and buying and cattle, and they have a factory for tahini, sesame paste, which now we find it in the shops. And they had loads of land and for agriculture, so they produce loads of things. So that's her family, and she had some priest and bishop in her family as well. And she talks about all the details, minute details about her this little village. So she was, capitalizing on some little things. What happened? Oops, nothing. Just one of my cats. So, uh, so she was the main aim of her in the book. I found she just was determined to establish education institute for women, and she did that in Tilkef. It wasn't a problem as such, because during the Ottoman Empire you couldn't do that. It wasn't allowed. Everything was run by the authority, and the authority didn't believe in diversity, didn't believe in other people writing their, education, or even speaking different languages, not Turkish languages, wasn't allowed. So I thought she managed to do that in Turkey. That's what she did. And then she talks about so many different things and little things, how the house has been built, how the people, what they wear, and everything. I said, how on earth she noticed all this, minute things. And then they went to Baghdad, and she was born in the ruin of Nineveh because there was the plague, and they stayed in Baghdad a few years and then went back to Tel Aviv. So she had very political understanding of political practice and social differences of that time, and she has a great passion for her country, for her village, for everybody. So she lived in very diverse society at that time well, it is Iraq anyway. At that time, there was no travel restrictions on people as long as they are part of the Ottoman Empire. So you could see people coming from all over, and Ottoman Empire was occupying loads of the world at that time. So you could see people from Iran coming, people from Europe coming, because part of Europe was under the occupation. So she did have this knowledge and awareness of all these differences, all these people coming, and languages as well. So she managed to speak few languages because
And,
of her environment.
and Emily, from my observation and from my own research, I have found that a memoir is not really a popular thing in the Middle East. Popular meaning that most writers, that's not what they engage in. It's usually nonfiction or fiction.
Yeah,
So for her to have written a memoir, and a memoir of that size at that time, was very
yeah,
extraordinary, because that's
absolutely.
how we got the essence of really the lifestyle, like you said, and the
Yeah,
details is when we
yeah.
really
All
felt the
these
essence.
details.
It's like she
True.
takes us in into
Yeah,
the exact things of what was happening. um, so I am really looking, I'm participating in this book club, the
yeah.
lecture series, because in it, she covers so many topics. So aside from her
Oh, look,
being
yes.
an interesting woman, she
Yeah,
life in Tilkif, like life in Baghdad, life in the desert with the Bedouins,
absolutely. This
travel.
is so interesting with the Bedouin. I
Yes, tell us
loved it.
about that.
It's so interesting.
Mhm.
We have this, and recently or modern time, people think the Bedouin aren't very kind or not very educated, or the woman. But when she lived there, she gave us different picture. They are so kind. They are so lovely. They protected her. She had to live there because she started. She got a license to have a school for women in Baghdad, which was very difficult to get, and she managed to work to help to work with the British missionary, and she became very friendly with them. And this the man who in the missionary, so he what he did, actually he took that permission and changed it under his name, under the missionary name, and she was betrayed, and she was so angry, and she was really devastated. So when she went to the Bedouin, they gave her all the kindness she needed, all the support. And she talks about so many details. She talked about all details everywhere. She lived in Lebanon, and if you go to the palace, you know, the palace of Amir Shahabi, I went there many times, and so I saw her room where she lived, and I saw all the detail, all the minute details. She mentioned it, and when she traveled in the ship from Cyprus to Europe, what really interested me, when she when the ship was in south of Italy, for they had to go for a quarantine. They are not allowed to just leave the ship and go wherever you want. They have to be in quarantine. The thing that really stunned her in a way, said, the women are not covered, their faces. The women working with men together, there is no segregation of sex or gender in Italy. She said, how on earth? They are together in the streets. They are not covered. They could talk. We could see their hands. We could see. That's what made her really couldn't believe it. And then from there, she went to meet the Pope, and then she stayed 6 months in the quarantine, and she talked about details of the quarantine as well. And then
And
she,
didn't the Queen of England, didn't
yeah,
she
yeah, yeah.
sponsor her book
Yes, yes,
project?
she did. Yes, yes. She went and met the Queen Victoria, and the elite people actually who are interested in the history of Mesopotamia, the Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian. They did worked with her because she is a good resource for them. She's a live resource. She could tell them a lot, and she did, as well. And then she started writing her memoir, and they helped her. They printed it, and it was very popular all over England. And always, I managed to get all the newspaper at that time, always mentioned in the newspaper at that time. Still, it's in the British Library. And then even in Europe as well, it was mentioned. So she was quite popular. And then she lost some of her, you know, money or what, something happened. So she was bankrupt. And it was in the newspaper as well. Everything about her was in the
She was
newspapers.
famous everywhere else, and so
Yeah, she was a star
outside of
at
her
that
own
time.
outside of her own people. Interestingly, outside
Yeah,
of her
yeah,
own country,
she
right?
was.
Which,
Yes,
yeah, these stories are common. But let's go back to your story now.
yes.
So we are going to learn so much about her, but we're also going to learn about you, because I think, like, what happened is, from my memory, is that once you learned about her, you started kind of following in her steps, and then you started getting involved in her book. So tell us what that journey was like for you.
Uh, it was it was hard. It wasn't easy. And to find more about her, because there isn't much about her in the Arab countries. There isn't much at all. And she was neglected in a way. Nobody bothered about her. And so I have to dig and dig and dig to find whatever. So I managed to go to the Shahabi Palace, and I went to their record, and I saw her name there as she was lady in waiting for the princess of Lebanon at that time. She met many people, and she mentioned all the people. One of the people she met, which is I managed again to discover and find what wasn't in it. It's Lady Stanhope. She is a British woman, and she was very interested in the Middle East. And she talks loads about her. Here they consider her one of the top and the best um, traveler or excavator person, but she wasn't actually. She was there just to dig for fortune and to find very, very expensive things to sell, not to study. So this is one of the. And so I had to go to Jordan, and from Jordan I had to go to Lebanon, and I went back to Iraq. I went to Iraq. I was going to go to Tel Cave as well to see her grave, and so I was ready to go. I was very excited. I might find more about her in Tel Cave. And then I called the church over there. I was in Erbil and asked them, I'm coming. They said, no, don't come. We are occupied by Daesh. So that was really, really disappointing and very sad to me. But still, I managed to follow loads of her. Following her through the British newspaper was the best way to find many about her. And Italy couldn't find much about her at all. And so I found a lot about her through the newspapers, through the book that was published in America. So they consider her one of the famous personality in that century. So they put her with the very famous book. So I managed to get that book, which is published 1927, I think. And this book didn't give me much about her, just part of her memoir. And they just appraised her, and they just said she was one of the most important personality at that time. So tracing her was difficult, and the difficult things and the disappointing, I couldn't find many things about her in the Arab world, in Iraq, in Lebanon, anywhere at all.
So
Nobody mentioned her. And
yeah, it is very.
that's why I start talking about her, giving lecture about her, whoever and wherever I work, wherever I travel. So she was very famous and popular. So her, my translation of her book, I chose to translate something specific because she wanted the women right, human right, education, and equality. That's what her emphasis was on, which is that what we do now, isn't it? It's the same. So at that time, she was aware of that. So I traveled to so many different countries, and I lectured about her. And the book in Arabic been published 5 times by different publishers, and still people wants to know about her. So in Egypt, they did an interview with the Egyptian television about her, and I talked about her, and nobody could believe what she's done. The way she traveled, with this caravan crossing the desert for 2 or 3 months on a camel back. This is something, it's so hard. And no man at that time, either from the Christian community or the other, had done something like what she's done.
And then write about it, write a 700-page memoir
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
So, you remind me of, we are so grateful that you have done what you've done, the work that has really keeping her memory alive and bringing her work, highlighting her work and bringing it out to surface. And you
yeah,
remind me of a woman, a professor, I forgot her name, but when they found the disc of Enheduanna, who was
yeah,
considered the first recorded writer in history, when they
yeah,
found that in ancient Iraq, there was a Western woman. Once she realized that, she made it like her just life purpose to just write about Anhedwana, to travel everywhere, to let people know about her,
yeah,
to give
yeah,
lectures. So
yeah,
as you were sharing that, I feel that you're representing that for Maria
yeah.
Theresa Asmar. So this is a
Yeah, Anna Diwana, it's the first, woman in the history of the globe, actually, to write
Mhm.
poems.
Right.
And, unbelievable. And
It was
so people,
unbelievable, and the woman had the woman, the Western professor who discovered what when she heard about her, she dedicated her life to bringing her, bringing
yeah,
recognition to her, because she realized
yeah,
the importance. And it was that same attitude that you're sharing now, that how do people not know about this? This deserves so much attention. And
yeah,
we're lucky that you're doing this for Maria Theresa Esmar, because she also has such an important role, but in a different area, in a different
yeah,
place, in a different
yeah,
time frame. So
yeah,
this book is very important in so many ways, and really
yeah,
deserves the time and energy that we're going to be
yeah,
doing this. And I feel like it's going to be because of how your personality is. You're so open-minded. You have such an amazing expertise and adventurous life, that I think participating in it is also going to be a lot of fun. So
yes,
we encourage people to sign up. All you have to do is you can call 248-681-5050 to register. You can send us an email at info@chaldeanculturalcenter.org.
yeah,
There's various ways to find us. You can find us on our website, but really it's only like a couple of weeks away that we're going to start this, and I'm very excited about it. And any last words? We only have like 2 minutes left. Emily, what are your last words about this?
Well, in her book, the two volume, it's not just talking about trouble. There is anecdotes, there is little stories, there is something funny, there is something sad, there is something kindness, there is a love in it, there is interest in it. So that's why her book is variety of things. It's not just a traveler talking about travel. No. So I would like people to know how she was thinking, what she was enjoying, and why she mentioned this and didn't mention that or whatever. So that's I want people, and her emphasis on women, on education, on equality, on diversity, and that's what we do now. So I want to introduce her to the people, to recognize her effort at that time. We shouldn't forget it was during the Ottoman Empire. We shouldn't forget it wasn't there was any opportunity for her even to exist in the society, because she was very young and she managed to do it when I assume she was only 15 or 16 years old. Although she wanted to become a nun and she didn't, but there is many ways, to remember her as well, not only from that point of view, from the other aspect of life that she's been through.
Thank you so much, Emily. Again, I look forward to the book club. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you to having me. Thank you.